and welcome back to another episode of What the Why with Barbara Ann on RVN Television. If you haven't seen us before, we feature conversations with diverse leaders from all walks of life about why they do what they do and how they figured things out. Whether you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, or you feel stuck and want to get unstuck in your company, job, or life, all of our guests have something in common with you. At some point, chief impact time career, something that many of us, including myself, can empathize with. Over the course of her 17-year-plus corporate career, she was recognized as a top performer who consistent with her extensive industry and business knowledge, strong sales management skills, and team development expertise. I'm really honored to have Maria joining me via Zoom, especially in light of the storms they had this morning, live from Florida. So without further ado, please join me in a round of applause for welcoming Maria Smith to our show. So, yay! Here's your round. Most of our viewers know Wanda, and Maria introduced us, and when Wanda said, I think you need to talk, and you know, as our audience, thank you for joining us again, knows that we ask every guest after reading their bio, because, you know, some of us, we actually had someone recently who's doing exactly what they wanted to do when they were a child, but that has not happened in 3 seasons thus far until then.
When I was at the time, I just wrote down that I wanted to go to college. You know, I'm a daughter of an immigrant with an equivalent of an 8th grade education who happened to have a passion and love for horses. So he came to this country literally on the back of a horse, and it wrote his future. And he lived the American dream, building out, you know, his was to go to school and to get an education. So I wrote down 3 things on a piece of paper at the urging of my 3rd grade teacher when she said, get out a piece of paper and write down 3 things you want to do. And I took it as 3 things you want to do with your life. Other kids in the class took it as 3 things that they should do by the end of the week, some by the month. There were really no parameters. I think she just wanted to see where our thought process was. And I wrote down, go to college. I wrote down that I wanted to be Miss Kentucky because I'd been watching the Miss America pageant with my mom for as long as I could remember. And then I wrote that I wanted to be a United States Senator. And that probably actually goes back to my dad, because probably a little bit of me, you know, sucking up to my teacher, and then also a little bit of me thinking, my dad learned English by watching C-SPAN. He would often better understand how to communicate with people at a higher level by watching House. And I thought it was really interesting. And I don't really know that I knew what a senator did. I just thought they had a really cool job. So I wrote that down because maybe I could think of something else. I'd already determined 2 pretty big things, and I figure, you know, I'll just write that one down. It was maybe the first thing that came to my mind. But I just created that visual just ingrained into my head that these are the 3 things you want to accomplish. I do not want to be a United States Senator by any stretch at all. Like, there's just nothing in me that makes me want to serve our country in that way anymore. I did graduate from college as a political science major, so it did shape me a little bit in that way. And then I won Miss Kentucky. So I achieved, you know, 2 of the 3 big goals, and I talk about that often.
We first talked, because we both, that was my undergrad as well, was political science. So, and once upon a time I wanted to serve, and I'm like, nah, working for the federal government was good enough. So,
yeah, same.
So you pursue your dreams. First of all, normally I would say, okay, and you know, and I had done some pageant competitions a little bit earlier than you did, by a decade plus, but I digress. Talk to us, because a lot of people really don't understand what that means and how that benefits women who compete and have the opportunity to get scholarship dollars and grow and develop in ways that the bias around pageants just don't understand.
It's like anything in life. If you're unaware, you don't know, we tend to make judgments or assumptions about things. And I used to have a teacher when I was in high school who always used to say, you know what happens when we assume, you can put 2 and 2 together. And so, and it was her way of always challenging us, who's been in the system, because it changes them. I have gotten friends of mine to volunteer on judging panels and books. They have written songs. They are aligned with national organizations as a national and sometimes international ambassador. Before they even get to the state level, they are doing these things in their community. And it wasn't that cutthroat and like next level when I competed, but at the same time, I was on several national boards. I had attended a national conference pertaining to my platform at UNC Chapel Hill and in Washington, D.C., and was able to speak on behalf of the youth that I were representing. And so it gives you a platform at such a young age to be able to hone skills that most people won't ever master in their lifetime. And it gets you really out of your comfort zone of having to speak in front of people, perform in front of people, and to put the hard work in. I think more than anything, it teaches resilience, discipline, focus, and it keeps you aligned with a goal that you're working towards. One thing that I have talked to so many women about is, only one woman wins the crown. And I'm extremely fortunate that I was able to represent my state. But I didn't win the Miss America crown because for me, that wasn't, yes, I would have loved to have become Miss America, but that wasn't the complete journey for me. It was really fulfilling my obligation as Miss Kentucky to be the best one that I possibly could. And really then to take that opportunity and to catapult my career, my life, my opportunities into a myriad of different experiences. And I was able to do that. And so many of the women who I know in the Sisterhood of Miss America who've worn the crown all will say the same thing, that it has been an absolute wonderful addition to our life. But that doesn't mean that everyone who wins are the only ones that are successful. There are so many of these young women who have competed and they have gone on to live ad.
And it helped you come out of undergraduate debt-free, which is a huge topic today. So you graduate. Talk to us about, you had over 17 years of experience in the corporate world, and then you have your own consulting company. How did you get to that point? How did you decide that was your purpose in terms of moving forward?
So 17 years in the corporate space. I was extremely resilient. I was very flexible, adaptable. I worked across 3 different industries for 4 Fortune 500 companies. I learned a lot about kind of that adaptability, flexibility, and honestly, I learned that from the Miss America organization. My decision to leave corporate, though, was really a calling. It wasn't something I ever expected. It wasn't something I planned for my life until I didn't feel that way anymore. And I think there were factors within my journey in corporate that led to that. And then when I got this calling to entrepreneurship, I really came full circle with finding who I was. And I think it was one of those experiences that you start to see as a mom and as a woman, especially as a woman in corporate who's wanting, corporate promotions and to climb that ladder. There are so many intricacies and difficulties and just challenges that we have. And I lost a big piece of who I was and who I helping out not enjoy. I think when the calling happened, it was like at that pivotal moment where I knew something needed to change, but I didn't know what or how. And so that's really how my consulting firm was developed. And then honestly, it has evolved 2-3 times over, because I think that's the joy and the beauty of entrepreneurship is you kind of get to make your own rules and you get to do your own thing. But what I kept coming back to, the key central point of what I kept coming back to in my work was that we have to be aligned. We have to show up in our personal life how we show up in our professional life. If we are 2 different people constantly competing for one another, it leaves us completely depleted. This is where burnout comes in. This is where chronic fatigue sets in, stress, the overwhelm. I can't show up, unfortunately, in any environment not being a mom. I can't show up at home not being a worker. The 2 have to be in total alignment. And I felt like I was consistently being asked to show up as one or the other. And the program and process that I designed really marries the neuroscience of how we set goals and how we show up for ourselves in our day-to-day life with how we show up for ourselves and how we goal set in our professional life.
Yeah, and that was, wow. And so many synergies in terms of what you believe and stand for, and myself. And it's interesting because there's a lot of professionals and coaches. Change is still stronger than the fear of what it would be like to remain the same. And so I guess it's slightly redundant, but how did you find the courage to step out and say, okay, I'm going to do this? I mean, I hear the reasons, but there's an aspect of courage to it. So what really finally said, okay, this is what I'm going to do and why I'm going to do it?
When I could no longer ignore the voice inside that was telling me you have to do this. You know, it's interesting. I wrote a piece actually for a friend of mine who's doing a compilation of stories of moms and entrepreneurs. And so my chapter really focuses on an experience that I had back in 2016 when my youngest was only 13 weeks old. And I found myself, you know, I was supposed to take an 8-week maternity leave. It ended up being 4. After 6 weeks, I decided to just go back full time because they were bugging the life out of me. And I'm like, you know what, forget it. I'll just go back full time. Why not get paid? And, you know, if I'm on calls anyway, might as well. Because they failed to de-ice the plane properly.
Wow.
And it was a very scary experience in which a lot of us felt that the plane might be going down. And so in that moment, a lot of things happen. And you face a lot of realities. You face a lot of things that maybe you don't on a regular basis because you think, I got time. I got another day. And coincidentally, I did the same. I kind of got through that experience and thought, okay, I'm good now. I'm good now. I can just resume life. But it was interesting because when I really started reflecting on the thoughts that I had, that was some of the thoughts that I had in 2019 when I finally, like, it just hit me so hard and I couldn't ignore it anymore. It was the same themes that were popping up in 2016. You know, I had the same thing happen in 2017. I had another, you know, opportunity to say, nope, I think I want to go in this direction. And I still said no out of fear and just being scared. And so that's why, you know, in my mission statement, when I wrote that a couple years ago, I said, you know, I have got to live life in the uncomfortable because I know that's what challenges me and pushes me to be a better person. It's really easy. It's so easy for us to stay comfortable. And actually, our brains want us to stay comfortable. They want to help us do exactly what we want it to, what we tell it to do. And so if we tell it, nope, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get out of my comfort. Responses in our brain to create new neural pathways and networks that challenge us and get us out of our normal way of doing things. Unfortunately, we have to step out of our comfort zone. And for me, that was finally in 2019. Standing on a bridge in Scotland with my husband, and it was too overwhelming of a feeling. And we were staring out at the River Ness in Inverness, Scotland, visiting some friends we had met the year prior on a trip to Ireland. And it just hit me. And that's when I said, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I have to leave. I know this is not my space anymore. It's not serving me. I'm not connecting to it in the way that I was prior. And I'm beyond it now. So it's time. And so I started putting an action plan together when we got home. And then the universe, I always say the universe gifted me, you know, with the pandemic because I chose to look at it very optimistically. And while, you know, we lost millions of people, and that was something that I think we all bared the overwhelming anxiety from. In our little bubble of our home, we chose to redirect, regroup, come back together as a family, and chart some big goals that we wanted to accomplish and achieve. And for me, that was one of them. So I always say that it was a gift because it gave me the opportunity to see, man, like this is happening right now, and this is why I can't wait any longer. I have to act now.
Fantastic. So we are actually past the time of our mid-show break. Always happens. So when we come back after this brief word from our sponsors, we're going to talk more about what you are doing in your company and how you're working with others to advance. Welcome back to What the Why with Barbara Ann and today's very special guest, Maria Maldonado Smith, aka Maria Smith. And before the break, we were talking about how she overcame and moved forward with purpose in her company. So let's talk about what you do at MMS Consulting.
Yes, at MMS Consulting Firm, we are a people and leadership development firm, and my main focus is to pour into employees, into leaders, into teams to develop better team cohesion, alignment, increase employee retention and engagement, and have participants and employees walking away understanding what their personal goals are.
In terms of what your company is doing today, please share with us. How are you working with individuals and companies to figure out what they need to do? Version of that.
So MMS Consulting Firm is a people and leadership development firm, and I work with corporations, mid-level size corporations, small businesses, individuals. And the goal is really to create in each of these environments is to create alignment, determination, kind of focus, and have participants of my workshops walking away understanding what their personal and professional goals are. The workshop itself provides an opportunity for leaders to get to know their team better, so it provides to employees. We are just at we're at a pivotal moment where more and more employees are saying that they want to be poured into. They want to be given the resources to become better in their personal life as well as their professional life. And I think as corporations, with as much as we ask of our employees, we should be pouring into them in this way. Because when we do, we have better aligned employees that want to show up. They know why they're there and they show up to work.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yes. Exclamation, fire emoji. No. From doing this work, especially in a post-pandemic.
It's also a generational shift as well, as we see more Gen Zers. 82% of Gen Zers want a more meaningful work-life balance and experience out of the corporation that they work for. They also want greater sustainability. So they're tapping into things that really are outside of just showing up to work every day and getting a paycheck, which was, my mom and dad's experience. They felt like if they could pay their bills, they were just lucky that they got paid. And it's really, I think it's a beautiful thing to see, millennials and Gen Zers like demanding more out of the work experience, because as the statistic goes, we spend 80% of our time with people that we work with. So I better be really invested in the company that I'm spending all that time, because I love my family and they're the first thing, in my list of things of order of importance. So for me to want to spend that much time, it's got to be worth it for me. And I think that is something that I've learned and that has been solidified throughout my work with corporations and with small businesses.
Awesome. And I guess as we start to wind down, since you have your own podcast, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I have my own podcast called Creating the Vision, and it's all about welcoming guests who can tell their story about how they're creating the vision for their life. And I think the beautiful thing I have learned through that process is that, one, no path to success is linear. And so many of us are still evolving, even into our 50s and our 60s and our 70s. And it just reiterates the point that we're never too old to stop dreaming, and we're never too young to start. And that was the impetus for me wanting to start the podcast in the first place, was more of a passion project of being able to share. In season 2, I am taking since I was 14 years old. I'm really tired. Yeah. And so I wanted to take a break. I'm like a lot of the participants in my workshop who put off travel or put off doing the day for season 2. And I already have a lot of content recorded up until into 2025. So I'm excited to launch this second season and promote these episodes, because the stories are really, really fun to be able to share and to tell.
Awesome. For now, who is considering
I talk about daily manageable tasks and how small habits or small tasks build up to the greater goal. So you just have to start. And even if it's just learning a little bit about pageantry, or learning a little bit about entrepreneurship, or how to create a vision board, if that's something that you want to do, come join me. I would love it. There's no one in this space, so I do feel like in a lot of ways I charted my own course, but I talk a lot about the neuroscience. That was something that I had to really, it was a niche I created on my own. It was something that I just figured out. Like I said, when I had the epiphany back in 2019, I didn't see this path. 5 years down the road, I didn't know what this was going to look like. I just knew I needed to start, and I put one foot in front of the other, and celebrated the small wins along the way. Anytime I would have even the slightest success, I made sure to remind myself, okay, now I know why I'm doing this. This is why I'm doing this. Yeah. So I think I would say that just start, know them, step out of your comfort zone, reach out to them on LinkedIn, talk to people. I have mentors I've never met, and I learn from all the time. Sarah Blakely is one of my biggest mentors, and I've never met her. I will one day. One day I will. But she's a phenomenal woman in business, and I look to her a lot for advice, just in the words that she writes on LinkedIn.
Wow.
So that would be my advice, would be just start, because unfortunately no one is going to do it for you. And if you're waiting around for someone to say, come on, I'll help you, you're going to be waiting for a long time. So unfortunately, that's why we have to just have this feeling, but I got to turn this feeling into something more than that. I wrote down 3 questions. And I answered them. And the first one was, what do I want? Like, simply, what do I want? Well, one, I wanted to be able to support my family financially, of course. I wanted to create something that was unique and something that was entirely my own, that I could own and I could pour my heart and soul into. The second thing was, who did I want to become? And I wanted to become someone different than I was when I was in corporate. I felt like I'd become a completely different version of myself that I didn't really like. It meant setting boundaries. It meant changing the way that I led and lived my life. And the third question I wrote was, what do I want to create? And I wrote that I wanted to create, a powerhouse program that changed lives. I wrote that my goal was to change the world one vision board at a time, because I truly believe that if we started this process when kids were young and we gave them the ability and the autonomy and the freedom to be creative and to think every single year of their academic journey, now what is it that I want? And you know what? My mind might have changed from last year, but that's okay, because I've evolved. I've learned more. Now I want to do something different. I think we would be more well-balanced. We'd be happier. We'd know a little bit more about ourselves and who we are. And I truly think that it would solve. I've been told that often, but
I love everything. You're fantastic. And
I would love for people to connect with me. I am on, I have my own website. I would say start there, because that's going to give you everything. It's going to tell you about my speaking. It's going to tell you about workshops, events that are coming up, ways in which you can hire me for your company or your small business to do this workshop. It works great for leadership retreats, corporate retreats, executive leadership team meetings, etc. However, I also have 35 additional workshops that I've built out that provide continuing education. So I would say start with my website. Email me, Maria@mmsconsultingfirm.com. I would love to hear from you. I would love most of the time. I'm not cool enough to be on TikTok. I'm on.
Thank you, and your purpose with our audience, many of whom really are seeking to clarify theirs. So thank you so much. And
thank you. Thank you so much, Barbara, and I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Now, regarding our upcoming guests, hey, we've got some really great guests, and believe me, you don't want to miss any of them. Similarly to Maria, they include guests of all ages, all industries, backgrounds. I can't speak about the pageant aspect, but they're fantastic, and many of them overcame seemingly insurmountable challenges to figure out their why also. So tune in to learn and be inspired how they did what they did, and how you can also achieve whatever you set your mind to by overcoming the fear. Got what they had to say. You can also catch all 3 seasons of our show on the What the Why page of RVN Television, as well as on the Roku app. These days, as a reminder, you can watch us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on RVN Television website or Roku. And also, please remember, whether you're looking to make changes in your life, no matter how big or small, You can tune in again for more illuminating, inspiring, and motivating conversations with guests such as Maria, who faced your challenges, whatever they might be, to find her core purpose and live it.